Hello, wise humans. This is Cynthia Sue Larson with RealityShifters.com talking with you today about how to talk with humans and dogs. First, I'd like to start by asking you to think about how you might live your life differently if everybody knew what you were thinking. How might that be? And it's relevant for me because when I was quite young, I did hear a message from my angelic guides who had a very good track record with me. So if they communicated something, it was usually spot on. It was advice to do or take action or do something that I wouldn't otherwise be aware of due to things that were happening around me and that hadn't yet occurred. So when they made a very clear suggestion by stating everyone knows what you're thinking. The suggestion, the unstated part of the suggestion is, if everybody knows what I'm thinking, how does that change who I am? For me, what it did is, from a very early age, I kept myself in integrity between different levels of myself so that I'm not trying to deceive others or at least not trying to say things that are patently untrue for myself. It's hard to even express any of this because I didn't really grow up doing that kind of socialized deception at a level that I would have otherwise. I probably still do some in order to fit into society, but it's hard for me to know how I would have turned out differently if at such a young age my angels didn't say that to me. I don't really know what would have happened. So it was kind of a surprising change in setting up the way that I was raised. I still had a family, of course, but in listening to this advice so deeply, taking it so much to heart, I could say, in a sense, I was raised by angels because I cared about their input on this particular component of my persona. So it's quite interesting to me personally. I feel like it's also a relevant concept because once I knew that everyone could read my mind, and I knew that for a fact, I could see evidence of it in looking at other people, knowing what they're thinking, what they're feeling. It just seemed like, yeah, that is true. And so it changed a foundational way of knowing the world for me to be one of integrity, authenticity, honesty, and being able to expect that, of course, everything comes with what you might call subtitles. In other words, everything can be read, everyone can be read, and it's a very transformative way of seeing the world. I believe we can adopt this at any point, and it comes in handy when we're communicating with other people and animals. So if you're looking at the idea of law of attraction, then maybe you understand that the vibratory frequency you bring to a situation, to a relationship even, will affect and influence what happens next. So if you approach a situation or a person or group of people with reverence and gratitude and love, you'll get a different outcome in that interaction than you would if you engaged in lower vibratory thoughts and feelings of jealousy and envy or mistrust, any of anxieties, things like that. So you'd be introducing problems where they didn't necessarily need to be introduced. So that's pretty clear. Now, if you look at the way we relate with animals and children, if you have young children or pets, you can instantly get feedback on how you're doing with this kind of unconscious sending that you're doing with your mood, with your vibratory frequency, because they pick up on it, whether or not you're thinking like, I am now switching my communication on. What if it's always on? Because that's a corollary of everyone knows what I'm thinking. If everyone knows what I'm thinking, that kind of indicates communication is switched on. We're sending. So if you're sending all the time, and so is everyone else, you can get feedback from animals. Wild animals are great. A couple months ago, I was doing a video out here, and I was having technical difficulties, and a wild squirrel noticed that I was concerned, and she just kept frolicking by my foot, and she even hung by a branch right next to me, really close to me, just sort of dangling and looking at me in a playful, whimsical manner to, like, cheer up. It was so sweet. and didn't catch any of it on camera because of the technical difficulties. But it sure improved my mood. Anyway, we can notice with children and animals how we're doing, because if we're feeling anxious, agitated, and internally conflicted, guess what? We're going to see pets and children that are anxious, internally conflicted, and they'll be sort of acting out on what we're feeling on the inside. So that's kind of interesting to get that sort of feedback. You can also develop rapport. Now, if you have a pet, like we had a family dog, and I did develop rapport telepathically with our pet, so I would be able to give it verbal commands and hand signals, but I also employed this beautiful telepathy that was just a natural part. When I know that I'm constantly sending, then I can just picture in my mind something that I wanted to do with our family dog, like let's jump over that fallen tree, or and I'd start things small, like, or let's walk on this balance beam. So we would do little things that I'd show telepathically, and then we'd proceed to experience that. And it made the whole thing much smoother than if I was trying to find commands that would fit this weird situation. And I got to see the whole thing play out brilliantly when the dog and I went on a dog jog one day. And part of the dog jog, in addition to jogging and running, that part was kind of boring. But then when we arrived back at the park we started at, they had set up a special kind of course called, I forget what it's called now. Oh, well, it's an agility course, that's it. So the agility course would involve walking on sort of, the sort of thing we were doing, the dog and I were doing, walking on a balance beam when we saw something alongside the park that looked like it could be a balance beam, jumping over things, going up an inclined plane and down again, jumping up onto a table, jumping through an inner tube. So our family dog did all of those things beautifully. I would think the thought for the things we'd never done before, and for the first time, no problem. It's not because I was dragging the dog against his will. It was because I'm sending the images. This is what we're doing. So the dog would do that. And the most amazing thing for me was when our family dog ran through a collapsed, basically it's a collapsed parachute. It looked like it was running through with no visibility in something that looked like clothing or something, like a silken parachute. It was a big bunch of fabric, and because I just pictured, you just run through it, you get out the other side. So that's what our family dog did, and the people that were there with the agility course were amazed. Your dog's never done this. Like, nope, never done this. Anyway, that's the good and the value of the telepathy and the connection and the rapport that you might have with a family pet or your child, family member, and friend. I've also experienced some beautiful things with first meeting dogs, very similarly, because the dog I've never met, this has happened so many times with me, when the dog that I've never met meets me, they know, if they're able to read such things, that I have alignment from head, heart, and gut. They know that whatever I'm thinking it's coming from a wisdom place, not some crazy place. And so there's a lot more trust instantly possible, and rapport instantly possible with even a wild dog that I've never met before. So I've thus been able to have fun with such situations where, upon first meeting one particular dog, a Doberman Pinscher, I just thought sit. I may have said sit so it could get used to my voice. The dog sat, so I was fumbling with the gate apparatus, and I approached the house and entered the house. I'm just thinking heel. The dog's heeling. And we approach the front door, and I knock on the door. My daughter was there with friends who were dog sitting. Anyway, long story short, the Doberman Pinscher continued to just beautifully behave with such perfect behavior next to me that it suddenly there was silence in this group of teenagers at this party. They wondered, how are you doing this? What's going on? And it's difficult to explain the whole thing. I think I did my best at the time, but basically this dog is perfectly behaved. It's just looking for that kind of internal alignment that most of us haven't bothered putting together on the inside. So we can see this for sending, and you can get some practice on being the sender, the communicator, and kids and pets are great ways to do it. Now on the listening side, that's important too, and we can develop this two-way street part of listening. It's very necessary for good communication. If you want to improve your listening skill, it really helps to know that there's no noise. So now you're going to be doing the listening to all these levels of conscious agency and listening to, all the things that are coming through from the superconscious, the conscious, the heart, the gut, and the subconscious. What's that all about? Well, for that, I'd like to read an excerpt from my newest book, The Mandela Effect and Its Society. It's from a section called There Is No Noise. I'm just going to read it out loud. A natural phenomenon known as stochastic resonance demonstrates that noise can actually aid coherence, which seems a bit counterintuitive. Typically, when we envision attempting to make sense of what someone is whispering to us across a table, we don't imagine we would hear the message more clearly if only we were seated at a table situated outside at a noisy cafe. Yet, numerous scientific studies confirm that background noise can be helpful in this way. Tony Bell describes how we can see evidence that there is no noise in background processes in biological systems. And Tony Bell emphasizes biological order comes from information flows, up and down levels via emergence and submergence. Our brains consist of networks or neurons open to the environment that communicate among themselves and also through the networks of synapses they are composed of, which in turn communicate through networks of floppy macromolecules. The reason that our bodies can function so well in what at first seems to be a potentially cacophonic din of information exchange is that while there are no levels in biological systems that autonomously compute, there do exist mesoscopic junctions. Okay, so when I saw Tony Bell give this talk, I was so impressed. I'd gotten a preview telepathically that morning of what he was about to say, so I was blown away when he covered it, because I've never heard anyone else cover it so eloquently. Tony Bell then pointed out that the main operational principle in our brains and in all living matter is the existence of level switching networks, coordinating exchanges of emergent and submergent information. Okay, so that's a lot to take in, I know that. I'm basically putting it there so you can sort of mull it over and you can just sort of simmer with it, feel it. Like, what does that mean? So what I'm saying is that these subconscious thoughts are kind of always there. What I find is it helps to quiet my rational analytical mind. So that's a how-to here. And when you know that you're doing, this constant receptivity, that it's always there, that there's no noise and so forth. And in fact, if you're in a chaotic environment and there's interruptions and birds singing and stuff, that's good. You can hear better. So for me, for my daily life, when I'm doing my intuitive work with clients individually, I actually quiet my monkey mind, the rational analytical left brain side, by keeping it busy with what might seem like distractions, with interruptions, with reading an article and then letting my rational analytical mind think about it while I'm actually still tuned in and getting non-analytical, intuitive, direct knowing information, kind of the right brain side of things. So it's just a beautiful way to do things, and I'm sharing it with you in case you want to explore it and try it out for yourself. So until next time, I hope you have fun with this idea. There's no noise. You can actually recognize you're always sending. How would your life be different if everybody knew what you were thinking? Maybe they do. What does that change? I believe we're actually moving into a world that's going to bring these concepts to the forefront. I know we're seeing it with artificial intelligence. We're going to start getting a lot of the devices will be mind controlled. It's already happening. We'll see this with ET disclosure. That's how their technology works. We're already witnessing it with the telepathy tapes, with those neurodivergent children and people that are clearly demonstrating that they can completely see and know things, that there's no rational, materialistic way that they could. So until next time, thinking about all of this and much more, keep asking my favorite question, how good can it get? And just know that I love you so, so much, and I'm excited about this world that we're co-creating together. Take care.